It'll say trying to reconnect. Oh, it came live right away. Look at that. We look good. Hey everybody, happy Friday. Today is Friday, March 9th. I'm here with my friend Dan Grieb. We are at the Citrus Club on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I know you guys are gonna say, what about the angled head on your head? Your giant forehead's in the way, but I'm sitting next to the healthy guy, and we're gonna talk about that in a bit. But let us know you can hear us and see us. That's the most important thing. I know a lot of you guys like to hide yourselves, which is very interesting to me. Did you know that they can do that on Facebook Live? Yeah, you can hide yourself. So Clay and Bill, let me know you can hear us and see us. Just give me a thumbs up, and then we'll just get started and dive in. So you and I have been friends for a while. We were just talking about how many times you've been or joined the Citrus Club. And you've joined under me once, and then you don't utilize it, so I don't get to see you as much. I just follow you on Facebook. So I'm very happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
So yes, you can hear. Thank you, Bill. So we're golden. All right, so give us a little background on you, my friend, because you've got a very interesting history, and I want you to share it. You weren't always a realtor. You actually don't just do real estate. You do a ton of stuff. So give us a little background on you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dan Grieb. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I moved to Florida in 1994, an opportunity to play football at UCF and go to UCF there for a while.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so came down here for that. But what really made me come down here, so I'll dig a little bit deeper and start a little different.
Please do.
Is I had a life kind of built for myself in New York, or what I believed was a life of going off and possibly playing college lacrosse. I was really good in lacrosse out of high school. And just before my 19th birthday, I did what every young Irish man does before his 19th birthday.
Is that what Grieb is? Grieb is Irish?
Grieb is Irish
Did
and
not
German,
know that.
yeah. So really big fan of my Irish heritage. And so I did what a lot of young Irish men do, is I went out drinking with my friends. And, I decided, I wasn't going to do some of the things I'd done before. I wouldn't get in a fight. I wouldn't cause any trouble. I was just going to go out, celebrate the fact that I was going to get out of my town and make good and go off to college and play lacrosse. And unfortunately, I was driving down a major road. See, in New York, we lived in a very segregated community. We had a road that's kind of like Colonial here in Orlando. So you literally go from one town to another. You have to go through a lot of smaller towns along the way. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, we found ourselves in a place called Hempstead, New York, which is the equivalent of like Pine Hills. And some people were saying some stuff to us from the car, and I remember that night saying, not tonight, I'm not getting involved, I'm not going to do anything. Right. And I started rolling up the window, the old crank 'em up windows. I was in my car, somebody else was driving, and I was rolling up the window, and out of nowhere I hear the window that I'm rolling up smash. And it smashed, and I remember like being really drunk and going from drunk to super drunk in like a second. And I look over at the driver, a friend of mine by the name of Patrick Phelan, another good Irish name, exactly. And his face is just completely horrified. He is like, "Oh my God, I can just remember that." And I was thinking to myself, like, "What is the matter? They just broke our window. It's not that big of a deal." And then I look at the windshield, and there is blood everywhere. I had been hit behind the ear here on the right side. And my temporal artery was severed, and I was bleeding to death.
God.
Yeah,
I did not know this story.
Crazy stuff. So I luckily was 5 miles away from our local trauma center called the Nassau County Medical Center. Patrick drove us straight there, and if he hadn't, I wouldn't have died. I actually owe Patrick my life for making that harrowing decision to get us there. And
wow.
And that was the end of my real estate my lacrosse career. All of the scholarships and opportunities I had been rescinded because of the injury. And the only real option I had was to move to Florida, work at Disney, and possibly walk on at the University of Central Florida as a football player. And such, that's how I ended up here in Florida, believe it or not. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that. Did they ever catch the guys that did it?
No, never did. It was just a crazy situation. They threw the bottle at the car. I don't think they intended on, killing me, but they almost did. And it's one of those situations that I was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Life changer, though.
Yeah, life changer. And here's the crazy thing. I live by a series of sayings, and one of them is life is 10% about what happens and 90% about how you respond. And for me, my response was, am I going to literally just stay here in Westbury? I called it Wastebury, New York, but it was Westbury,
My
New
cousin
York.
Teresa's on. I think she knows like that area up there in Hempstead and Wasteberry.
Yeah, Long Island.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I just going to waste myself away here and just this is going to be who I am? You know, I was raised by an alcoholic father who left my mom when we were young. He abused her. He acted up. I was around a lot of alcoholics and troublemakers growing up, and my DNA, Ted, was to not be a good member of society. I mean, my trajectory was to be exactly what I was going to be, laying on my mother's couch at 19 years old with no real future. And I made the decision right then and there that my legacy would not be.
What was the motivator? What was the epiphany, though? Like, just because a lot of kids, when they grow up in that, they go the same way. It's like the sins of the father. They continue on in the pattern. So what was it about you? Did you always know that you wanted to break that pattern, didn't want to be like that?
Well, I would, yeah. So you're talking about generational curses, right? So
yes.
This passes down from that. I just remembered how I felt. I remember feeling, unworthy. I remember feeling like I wasn't good enough. And that was the chip I had on my shoulder that actually made me really good in athletics, is that I had something to prove. But I just, once that was all stripped away and gone, for me it was, I just want my life to matter. Sure. I just want to be better than this. This is not who I have to be. It was a choice that we made. Right. And that leads me to one of my next statements that I say to myself, and that is, you are at the place, at the time, experiencing what you're supposed to be experiencing, going through what you're supposed to be going through, with whom you're supposed to be going through, as preordained by the God of the universe. And what that means to me is that when you're going through it, instead of saying, oh, woe is me, why am I going through this? You have to ask yourself, what am I being prepared for?
Sure.
Because to get to the top of the mountain, you have to go through the lowest of valleys. And here's what I found out about a lot of successful people is when you really interview them and you open them up, they've been to the super low valleys, and that's what prepared them to go to the mountaintops.
I agree.
So if you're just riding along, while I'm not encouraging trouble to show up into your life, and I don't want to see that happen.
Right.
When it does show up, just understand that that's just an opportunity for you to really become the person that you want to be. And I wouldn't be in the place I am right now. I wouldn't be married to the woman I'm married to now. I wouldn't be the father I am today. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if it hadn't been for that person who threw that bottle and changed the trajectory of my life.
Isn't it? That one instance that was a complete negative that you could have died, and look how much that changed, because you had a whole different idea in your head, which I think we all do when we're younger. This is what I'm going to do. And then when something comes up, and sometimes you don't have the tools, or you don't have the faith, or you don't have the wherewithal or the support, whatever it is, to actually look at that and go, okay, I am going to do something different. Because it would have just been as easy for you to lay on the couch and sit and rot in Wasteberry, which would have been a normal path for you to take based on what you had come from.
Absolutely. And you know what the sad thing is I watched my friends and relatives do exactly that. Yeah. And they're still there. They're still in those same patterns of behavior. They're going through those same issues. And my answer to them is that the last quote that I really live by, these three governing quotes, is today's the first day of the rest of your life. Is that, whatever happened yesterday, while it has some significance, it doesn't have to be the deciding factor of your life. You do not have to make that the defining moment.
Correct.
My defining moment is not that I was, abused as a child by my father, or that I was, hit in the head with a bottle, or that this thing or that happened. I can take steps moving forward even today at 43 years old to do something different with my life, to create something better with my life, and to be that person that I've always wanted to be.
Right. And I think a lot of people get stuck, though. They don't believe it. They feel like they've been in the same pattern for 10, 20 years. And in reality, what you're saying is today's the day. So you woke up today. One step is better than where you were.
Exactly.
And that's what I love that you live by that. So you took all of that, right? You tell us what happened at UCF. So you graduated from UCF?
Actually, I didn't graduate from UCF. I discovered that I did not need a college degree to be a police officer.
That's right, police officer.
So, and I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to protect kids. A whole nother story. You'll have to bring me back another day. But I also, as a young man, 11 years old, went to go live with my dad for 2 weeks, and he ended up keeping me for 2 years and started beating me up and abusing me.
Oh my gosh.
And I went through all of that. And I remember saying, when I get older, I want to protect kids.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I was often misunderstood because I used to build this wall of protection that I was a real tough guy. And I am a tough guy. I mean, I've trained jiu-jitsu, martial arts, boxing. I've been in a lot of fights when I was younger. I come from a rough environment. but that's not who I am.
Right.
You know, I'm really sensitive. I jokingly tell people this. My favorite movie in the whole world. Do you know what my favorite movie in the whole world is?
No, what is it?
It's The Sound of Music.
I was going to say it's got to be The Notebook or maybe The Sound of Music.
Yes, The Sound of Music. You know, so you know, just this weekend I went to Celtic Women with my wife. Like that's one of my favorite groups.
I love
but
that.
People don't know that. And here's one of the things that I learned a little bit later in life is a saying. And if I'm going to share it with your audience here, and it says this. It's very important, and please write this down because I think it can impact you. And it's a simple saying, but it's so valuable. And it's simply this: the walls that you build to protect you will one day be the walls that imprison you.
Amen.
And I had these walls up for protection, and I was like, I'm going to be this tough guy, and no one's ever going to get to me again, and no one's ever going to hurt me like my dad hurt me, and no one's going to hurt me like I was hurting my family, and no one's going to ever get to me.
Right.
And so I'll protect myself. But here's the problem, is that when I did have a girlfriend that got close to me and that I felt like truly loved me, she loved this like image of a tough guy, and that wasn't me, that was my act. So what ended up happening is it drove me even further down to believing I was even worse than I was. I was even more worthless. And so I had to sabotage it.
A big cycle.
Yeah, so I had to sabotage it. And so so then fast forward back, go to college, end up coming here to UCF. Had an opportunity to become a police officer, but before that, had a roommate, fantastic guy. Him and I stayed together for a while. His dad owned a house near UCF, and his job was to rent out the rooms, kind of pay for the house during that time. He was from, I think it was from Alabama or somewhere, southern state. And he was great to me. His dad was great to me. They were fantastic. And one day we were here in downtown Orlando in like the 90s, right? When there were Have a Nice Day Cafe. And
I loved that place, yeah.
So we were downtown, and he ended up like having a girlfriend, and literally on the dance floor, she turned around and like started dancing with another guy, and like that was the end of their relationship, like right there on the dance floor. And it was really kind of tough. And he was a little smaller guy, and I always used to keep an eye on him and protect him. And, you know, he took care of me in other ways, and I was there just to make sure Steve was always okay, this guy. And he just took off. I couldn't find him, and I was panicked. I couldn't find him, and I eventually went home. And at like, 3 o'clock in the morning, he shows up, and I'm like worried sick for this guy. I'm like laying on the couch worrying for him. He gets home, and like his mother, I'm like, you can't do this. You need to tell me where you are. And so he's like still a little drunk and upset about his girlfriend situation. And he responds back to me, you can't talk to me like this. I'm sick of you. Matter of fact, I'm kicking you out of the house. And I started laughing because I knew his dad. His dad would never allow that to happen. So I don't know. I hear the garage go up, and he's rolling my motorcycle out of the garage. So I go out there and I'm like, what are you doing? You can't do this. Like, stop it. He throws my motorcycle on the ground.
Ouch.
Breaks the mirror. So I like grab him and like put him on the hood of my car. And he starts like trying to rip the windshield wipers off. So I like grab him and I went to go put him on the ground. And when I went to put him on the ground, he put his arm out. I ended up breaking his arm. And
Ouch.
He was hurt, and I felt terrible, and I had to move out. And we just couldn't recover the relationship. As adults, we did later, and I'm really glad we did because I felt bad about the whole situation.
Sure.
But the story behind that is that I went to work that day right downtown here. I was in charge of the valet parking downtown, and there was a guy there named Greg, and I was telling him the story about how the move out broke my roommate's hand. I feel terrible. I got no place to stay. This sucks. He goes, why don't you come stay at my place? I'm going home for the summer. You can just take my room. You don't have to pay me. My parents have already paid for it by UCF. Stay there.
Another trajectory change.
And here's what's crazy is his name was Greg, and he ended up going away for the summer. And while I was there, he says, just go. Don't have to pay me. And find another place before I come back. Of course, I didn't find another place before I came back, but I became good friends with the other guys that lived there. There was like 9 guys in 3 different little apartments there.
Wow.
That were all together, that lived together, and they were all Christian kids that went to church and lived good lives. And Greg came back, and I had no plan. Well, one of the guys walks up to me. His name is Cortland Fuqua. The guy changed my life. I hope he hears this story. And he says to me, Dan, I know you don't have any money in a place to stay. I have a trundle bed in my room. Just come sleep with me. So he literally slept here, and I would pull a bed out, and I would sleep there. And Cortland, took care of me.
That's amazing.
And then they invited me to go to church with them, and on May 5th of 1996, I had a religious conversion. I started to understand my value outside of what my dad did to me, outside of what life circumstances meant to me. And that was the beginning of a new day for me.
It's a blessing.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes.
So you had the change, but how did you get into real estate? Because that's really the next step, because you have so much more that you do. You're not just, I love what you said earlier, you're not defined by these things necessarily, but you do a lot of things. But real estate really was kind of the catalyst, wasn't it? So that's led you to things. So you got into the market. Was that an accident, an epiphany? Did you know? Because you were a police officer. So how do you go from police officer to the real estate world?
Yeah, so I was a police officer right here in Central Florida, Seminole County, and I was working really hard, working overtime, and before I met my wife, when I met my wife, can I tell you a story about how I met her?
Absolutely.
All right, so I met her at that same church I went to with those guys. Literally that second week or third week of being there, I meet this young lady, and in my head I had this list of things that I wanted in my wife. Power couple. I wanted to marry a redhead because I have red hair, and we're a dying breed. We need more redheads to get together to keep our breed going. And I already actually had met a young lady who had red hair, power couple. She was an A-type personality, and we were talking. We were like dating a little bit, and then I met who's now my wife, Mindy, and Mindy comes up, and in my head I was like, okay, my wife's gonna be power couple, and we're gonna take over the world. She's gonna make 10 sales. I'm gonna make 10 sales. I'm gonna make an arrest. She's gonna make an arrest. We're gonna just take over the world together. So she walks up to me and says, we start small talking, and she says, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to take over the world, typical male thing. And I said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to be a mom and take great care of my husband. And I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Right, I completely changed everything that I decided I wanted when it fell in front of me. Right. What I needed and what I described my wife to be is everything I never knew I wanted.
She's awesome.
Yeah, everything I never knew I wanted is my wife, Mindy. And so that was the beginning. So fast forward back to me being a cop. And now I'm a cop. I'm 5 years on the job, 6 years on the job, and I'm making just enough money to be broke all the time.
Right.
And my wife and I are making a decision, like, do we stay in this crappy little house here? Do we, does Mindy get a job? Like, I don't want to do that. I made this promise to her. I want to be everything to my wife that my father was never to my mother.
Correct.
And so I'm like, nope, not an option. So I started looking for options. So I had 3 options on the table. I was already kind of studying to be a paramedic, so I could go to nursing school, become a nurse practitioner. I could make $100,000.
Great job, great career.
Yeah, great career. I thought if I can make $100,000, I'll be rich. And then I was thinking, well, I'm a cop, so that automatically makes me smarter than all attorneys. I could just go be an attorney. I could do that.
My friends are not going to disagree with you.
Yeah, well, that's what cops think. They think they're smarter than attorneys. I think that now that I'm a little bit older and more sophisticated, I probably don't have to agree with that 100%. That can make $100,000 doing that. And then I knew a guy who was selling real estate, and he was making $100,000. And I was like, well, I could give that a try. I won't have to go to any more school. I won't have to do that. So I literally quit my cop job on a Friday. I had $3,000 in the bank.
Wow.
And I started my career. I had to make a sale my first month, or else I couldn't pay my mortgage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's motivation. Obviously, Mindy was there to support it, right?
Oh,
How did that conversation go? She's like, do what you want to do? Because she obviously she didn't want to have to go back to work, but she also wanted to support your dream.
Right. Well, she wanted to stay home with our kids.
Right.
So of course she said, go right ahead and do whatever you think is best. I trust you. And so I went right after it. And my first year in real estate, I sold 42 houses, and I went from $60,000 to $242,000 in income my first year. And I'd like to tell you it was smooth sailing, but it wasn't. It was not smooth sailing.
It's not. So tell them a little bit about that, because I think people go, oh my God, he caught a whole bunch of lucky breaks. It was easy. When people see other people on the show and the guests are talking, they think, God, he had to have all these easy breaks. And that's not it. There's struggle in everything.
Right, and there's miscalculations, there's course corrections, there's waves that crash into your boat, it sinks, you gotta bail out the water or whatever you gotta do and keep going. For me, what happened is my first year I made $242,000, and then I took the advice of idiots. And I said, okay, what should I do? And they said, well, you're a successful real estate agent, you need to do what? What do you think the first thing they told me to do?
Be a broker?
Well, not just be a broker, go buy a car. What kind of car?
Oh, you had to buy a fancy car.
What kind of real estate agent car?
I don't BMW.
Of course, one that I can't afford, so I got a BMW. And then did they tell me I should go buy a house?
Absolutely.
Of course, I should buy a big one. So here's the good news. I set the record for the neighborhood that I lived in at the time for paying the most amount for any house per square foot that has ever been purchased in that neighborhood. And I still have that record. I'm happy to tell you, as a real estate agent, I was the dumbest client I've ever had.
I love it.
And so I did. And then, you know, of course, because I'm in real estate and a businessman, and I wasn't very sophisticated, didn't understand what I was doing. Did I think I paid my taxes my first year?
No.
Of course not. And here's the thought process.
That was all free money, wasn't it?
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I'm just a little fish. The IRS will not even, they'll forget about me. They won't even know about me. And so I figured I would just not pay my taxes the first year. So then year 2 happens. It's now 2006, 2007, and we got a real estate crash here in Orlando.
Yeah, we do.
And I can't sell a house. So here I am a year later looking at, so I go from 60,000, 240,000, 270,000 to almost bankruptcy.
Wow.
Losing it all. My house is getting foreclosed on. My cars are being repossessed. And I'm literally crying. I have my hands in my face, and I'm saying, God, why did you let this happen to me? Why did you let me go from no credit, not a lot of stuff, but at least stability, to now, like, I got to look my kids in the face and tell them, like, we may not have a place to live.
Right.
And
if that's not an awakening, eye-opening experience, it's crazy. I know a lot of people that have had to go through it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I've failed my family. Well, the good news is I did not declare bankruptcy. My wife and I made the decision that I would do whatever it took to pay our way out of that and get out of that. And remember, life is 10% about what happens, 90% about how you respond. And you are living in an environment where you are at the place at the time, going through what you're supposed to be going through, dealing with the problems you're supposed to be dealing with as preordained by the God of the universe. So if that is actually true, what is he preparing me for? Well, I didn't know at the time. It was so that I could be my family's first millionaire. And see, I could never get to the place financially I'm right now if I never had lost everything and had to go find a Dave Ramsey to teach me how to manage money correctly. For me to truly respect a dollar, for me to truly respect, leverage and mortgages and really people and the investing in people and giving to the people that work with you and making sure that their goals are met as well. I didn't really even understand that or respect that when I was early on in my career because it came entirely too easy. And as a result of anything that comes easy, it can go easy. But if something comes through hard work, it takes a lot to go away.
I agree.
So that was kind of my real estate. And then since then...
talk about the 18 months, because that was the title of the show. A lot can happen in 18 months. What were you referencing? Because I love to let the guests pick the title of their show because it usually is representative of something they went through or something they're trying to share with the audience, something that motivated them or changed their lives. So what happened in 18 months that impacted you? Right.
So that's a great lead-in is, so here I am in financial trouble, right? And I got to work my way out of that. So what's the one thing that right then and there I did? Well, I told my wife, you're not going to feel the impacts of the financial mistakes I made.
Wow.
You're not going to get a job. My kids are going to continue to have the lives they have, and the only one that's going to suffer is me. So I literally worked 24 hours a day if I had to, 7 days a week, making it happen and finding a way to win. And so while I was doing that, I did zero to take care of my health. Now, I wasn't doing much to take care of my health prior to that, but after this time where we were facing bankruptcy and losing everything, I really wasn't taking care of my health. I was drinking Mountain Dew, Rockstar energy drinks, Red Bull to stay awake late into the evening. I was eating whatever food I could, and my weight actually ballooned up to 310 pounds.
Wow.
So roughly 24 months ago, I found myself now battled out of this financial situation, now in a better financial situation, laying in bed with my wife, of almost 20 years, doing what everybody who's been married for 20 years does in their bed. You know what that is?
Eat,
No,
sleep.
we're playing on Facebook.
I was going to say there's...
Yeah, she's playing on Facebook, I'm playing on Facebook, right? And Time Hop came up. And you know Time Hop?
Yes, I see it every day.
Yeah, so those that don't know what Time Hop is, it's basically a program that tells you a photo of 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. And I saw these photos of myself, and all of these photos showed me like just getting larger. And at the time, I was on a diet. I mean, I had been on Nutrisystem. You guys know what Nutrisystem is?
Yeah, sure.
Nutrisystem is this box of food they send you, and you put it in a corner in your kitchen there. You don't eat it. You don't lose any weight. I've been on that. You ever heard of that?
I think all of us have
been on that one. I was on Weight Watchers. You know what that is?
What's that?
Well, Weight Watchers is where you basically have points that you eat. You go to like this group, and you weigh in and stuff. I was the only man in the group, so I would like starve myself in the morning, weigh in, be down 3 pounds, all the women would be pissed off at me. I'd get my little rubber bands, and then I'd go back and put the weight on that evening, because men lose weight faster than women.
Right.
And that was that one. And then I had done another diet. Of course, I had personal trainers over the years that I didn't listen to and made excuses not to go work out with. And then I also had this best diet I've been on. You ever heard of a diet called the HCG diet?
Oh, yeah. This is the one where you eat 500 calories and you get shot with human growth hormone.
Well, it's not human growth hormone. Actually,
what is
it's a hormone that women carry when they're pregnant.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
So I did that. I was pregnant for a while, and I ate 500 calories, and I lost like 30 pounds. And then as soon as I stopped being pregnant and started eating again, I gained it all back.
Yeah, you can like sniff bread and you gain weight on that diet.
Of course you do. And so, like, you know, you can't be pregnant forever, and especially if you're a man. So,
right.
So that was what happened to me, and I ended up gaining it back. So I made a decision that, like, I've really got to do something different. And so I started looking for what kind of leverage I could find, because I'm in business, and business is about, like, leverage. You know, you can leverage yourself through people, you can leverage yourself through debt, you can leverage yourself through relationships. There's all kinds of ways to leverage yourself. So I said, what kind of leverage can I get to get a head start? Just a head start, just to reset my life.
Right.
And I didn't have to work all the time, so I had the place to do that. So what I did is I had a little weight loss surgery. It's called the gastric sleeve. Forget about the whole concept of a sleeve. It's irrelevant. Basically what it is they just remove a portion of your stomach. And so you don't have a full-size stomach anymore. And what's tremendous for me for that surgery is that you just can't eat after you have that surgery. And that's the reason why I did it. I had no medical issues. I did not have diabetes, no high blood pressure, no issues with my heart.
Huge.
I just did it completely elective surgery. It was to give myself a restart. See, here's what happens when you have a surgery on your stomach. You have to start with just drinking water. That's all you can do. If you do anything else, you'll throw up. Your stomach's not ready for it. Then the next thing you do is you eat pureed food or soup, broth. Then you go to pureed food, baby food. And these are like week, 2 weeks. Then you go to soft foods like babies do. And you got to be careful to chew everything, because if you don't chew everything, it'll get stuck or it'll create pain or you could throw up, you know.
Right.
So you have to relearn like a baby does how to eat, and that was how it benefited me. And then you kind of move on. You can't eat as much. At the same time, I said, you know, I'm going to start re-examining some of my I am statements. You know, I am statements are statements where we say, I am this, I am not that, I am. And I really examined that statement for myself and said, I'm going to do a really good job of not saying I am anymore. I'm going to replace it with different words.
Yeah, what do you replace it with?
I choose.
I choose.
So instead of saying, I am not a swimmer, like, do you want to go swim 2.4 miles with me tomorrow?
I do not.
Right, I do not want to do that. But here's what I don't want you to say. I don't want you to say, I'm not a swimmer. You could be a swimmer.
Right.
You just choose not to be a swimmer.
Correct.
But I would say, like, I'm not a swimmer. I'm not a biker. I'm not a runner. Like, that's not who I am. I'm a big guy.
That was the cop-out. That was the easy way.
Well, what
out.
that was is that was my box.
Yeah, that was your box.
I created a box of things that I could and could not do. But as soon as I started saying, like, you know what, I'm going to actually change that to, I'm choosing to not swim, or I'm choosing to be that, or I am this, or I am that. Well, no, I'm not. I'm choosing to be that.
Correct.
So, like, I am not outgoing. Okay, no, I choose not to be outgoing in this environment. If you had an opportunity to meet some great person that you've always wanted to, you'd quickly become outgoing.
Absolutely.
You'd make a choice in that
You'd
moment.
make the choice. That's what people, I think, get caught up in. They don't realize it's really the choice. I used to tell the kids, they still get mad about it, you're choosing to be that way. You're choosing to experience that emotion in that way. It's psychological. I mean, that's what you're making the choice to have that reaction. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you're making the choice to say, I'm unhappy. All right, well then if you're unhappy, then choose to not be, or choose to be happy and figure out what that means. And you're saying the same thing instead of I am not a swimmer, which I choose not to swim. How's that?
Right. So
I love that.
So let's go back to the concept of choice here for a second. We'll kind of start wrapping this part up. But here's the reason why I want you to hold on to this I choose versus I am statement. Because if you choose something, who owns the power? Who has the power?
I do.
You have the power.
That's correct.
But if you start saying, I am this, you're acting as if someone or something or some way has made it for you, so now you're bound by it.
Absolutely.
So you're shackled to that. And if you really ever decide to change your mind, then you couldn't be in agreement with yourself if you've always said, I am not, I am not, I am not, I am not, and now you choose to it. Now that's this big struggle. It's like, well, I'm just choosing not to do that right now, but I can choose to do that later.
Correct. Absolutely. I choose not to swim, but that doesn't mean I won't ever swim.
Correct.
But if I say I am not a swimmer, I get the logic. Actually, I think that's brilliant. It's smart.
Same with business. I'm not smart. Well, you're just choosing not to be smart. I'm not a reader. We're just choosing not to read. And here's a saying that Mark Twain says, and he says, the man that does not read has no advantage over the man that cannot read.
Correct.
So
Very good.
So if you just choose not to read right now, that's fine. But I remember a time where I said I'm not a reader, and now I read all the time.
You're a voracious reader. You talk about it.
Huge. And that because as an adult, there's few places you can go to get the education that we really need, the practical education we really need to be successful, not just in business, but in life. And here's the thing. When I speak to people like today, a lot of these are what you would call business principles.
Absolutely.
I'm going to challenge that. They're not. They're life principles.
They are life principles.
They're life principles that apply to business, because I don't want anybody to hear any of the interviews I ever do or hear me speak anywhere in the country, Canada, wherever, and hear like, all right, this is a great business principle, I'm going to use it here in business, and then they don't go home and teach it to their kids.
Right.
Like, I believe in leadership is three things. Number one is how you lead yourself. Because when we think about leadership, people say, well, it's how many people I get following me or what I do for them. And I say, no, it's not. It's about how you lead yourself, how you manage yourself. When the rocks of life come down and hit your house, how do you manage personally? The first level of leadership is yourself. Second level of leadership is in your family, where it counts. Because, your wife, your kids, they need you. Your spouses, your husbands, your boyfriends, girlfriends, your aunts and uncles, they need you. Because the phone calls are going to come. Someone passed away.
Right.
Or the kid is sick. Or I got a diagnosis. Or we're in financial trouble. Well, that's when we need a leader.
Great.
That's when we need a leader. And then the last area of leadership is in your business or in community. So, and here's what I say is in business and community, it's all just practice. It's all practice because, reality here, if I don't close a real estate transaction, I don't get the speaking gig I want, I'm unable to negotiate the terms of a venture I'm doing, it's still going to be okay. But when the kid is sick or my mom needs some help or there's a crisis. Well, the good news is I've been practicing all day here at work. So when leadership needs to show up, it shows up now in my personal life, and I would be doing a huge disservice to anyone that works with me, sees me as a mentor, looks up to me in any way, if I didn't give them an opportunity to be a leader in any organization I'm part of.
I love it. All right, so you do have to come back. We have to have a part 2 to this. So we're going to share all of Dan's contact information, how to reach out to him. He's been so generous spirit, generous soul. I love it. I love what you shared with everybody. I even took away, like a lot of times I'm mesmerized when people like you talk because I just think it's very motivational, but also life-changing. And I think there's tons of comments. So when we get a chance, Dan and I will absolutely respond to you. But thank you for, having a servant's heart and getting out here and sharing that with everybody. I think it's so important. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And, I am here in Orlando. If there's anything I can do to serve you, whether it be real estate, leadership, coming out and speaking to an organization, I'd love to do that. I want my life to matter more than myself. And I was telling you a quick saying, and then I'll kind of say my parting thoughts.
Please do. Say your parting thoughts and a quick saying.
Yeah, so my quick saying that I said to Ted this morning is that the man who has a compelling reason to get up in the morning does not need an alarm clock.
It's true.
And I don't need an alarm clock because I've made my life bigger than myself. Is that it's just not about me. It's about those that, say like, I want to be inspired by this. I want to do what Dan did. I want to lose 110 pounds. I want to regain my health. I want to regain my marriage. I want to regain my relationship with my kids. I want to have something bigger than this. And if I'm going to be an example of that, I got to get up in the morning and start that. So that's the thought there. And then my final thought is simply this, is that it's an Irish blessing. We say it a lot in Ireland, which I've never been to. I will be there one day. But it says this: may the road rise up to meet you. May the sun shine upon your back. May the rains fall softly upon your fields. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
I love it. You'll love Ireland, by the way. Thank you so much, my friend, for being on here. We love you guys. Great comments, great feedback, and that was such a great way to kick off and finish the week. Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless.
All right. God bless you guys. We love you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Tuesday. I will not be on Monday.